Hello, my friends of the Fertility Confidence Podcast. Welcome back. I have something short and sweet for you today. I have a bone to pick. I have a little bone to pick with the fertility community and some apps and things that I feel like are just causing some undue stress. Is that the best way to put it? But before we get into why I'm so aggravated by this, quick thank you to our amazing podcast sponsor, Needed. They've offered us 20% off our first orders with the code Dr. Kelsey over at thisisneeded.com. You can check out all of the amazing preconception, pregnancy, and postpartum support products that they have, as long as some amazing male fertility products. I personally really love using their prenatal essentials or their prenatal powder, as well as their men's prenatal, which is a really great formula for men to get a lot of amazing, powerful antioxidants to help with sperm count and motility and morphology and DNA fragmentation. And so if you are in the market, definitely check them out. And thank you so much to Needed. So why am I grumpy? I am grumpy because we still have this belief that the LH surge tells us something. So, what do I mean by that? If you are someone who is early on in your journey and you hop onto Google or you talk to your girlfriend or you see anything on the internet and you're like, I want to start getting pregnant, what is the first thing you're often told to do? To track your ovulation, right? And how do we often first get steered into that journey? Through using ovulation predictor kits / OPKs or LH kits, those little pee test strips that are going to show us if we're ovulating. And I'm not here to say those are total bogus, because they're not, but it's also not a strategy that we actually use with our FCM clients. 99% of situations. There's the odd time where I'm like, let's throw an OPK in there. Or if someone's not temping and we need to do testing, we'll throw an OPK in there. But for the most part, it's not a strategy that we use with our clients. And what we're going to talk about in this episode is actually one of those main reasons. But let's say this is you, right? Because most women, this is the first sort of dip their toe into trying to get pregnant. It's like, well, I need to know when I'm ovulating. And if we're not just guessing, what are we doing? We're using OPKs or LH strips to tell us when we're ovulating. And my beef isn't necessarily with that as a strategy as a whole. My beef is with the apps and devices that are giving us a quantitative measure of LH. So, a really popular app that a lot of women use, and you might be one of them, and I'm not shaming you because you're not alone, is Premum. You buy the little OPK predictor test strips, you pee on it, you let it develop, and then what do? You get to take a picture. And I've had clients who keep their pee sticks in a notebook so that they can watch the progression of their line. This is the same thing, right? But it's just in an app. So you can take a picture with your phone and save it. But when you do that, the app is also giving you a number, a quantitative measure of what it thinks your LH is. That's my problem. Why? Because so many of you get hung up on that number. Is it high enough? Is it too low? I had a 0.7 last cycle and now it's only a 0.4. What does that mean? It means quite literally nothing. It means nothing. And that's why I'm so bothered by how much it's still utilized, because it causes a lot of undue stress. The number to, first off, when you're taking a photo of a strip, I have done this before doing prove kits. And again, I love prove. I'm not saying that this is not a great strategy, but we also have to remember that we are just taking a picture of something and our camera is then uploading this picture and the app is using this algorithm to pop out this number. It's not going to be uber accurate. It absolutely does not correlate with the LH that we would see in your blood if we did serum testing. And at the end of the day, the number doesn't matter. The number in serum testing doesn't matter either. What matters is that you ovulate. Did your LH get high enough to ovulate? And if you're properly tracking ovulation, you're BBT temping, and we're seeing that shift in temperature. If we're not seeing that shift in temperature, you did not ovulate. And so we need to keep assessing for ovulation. If you see that 0.3 to 0.5 to 1 degree shift that's sustained for 4 to 5 days to confirm ovulation, then we know you ovulated. The number of which your LH is on your Premom app or your Prove or your Mirror or your Anito, none of that matters. It being slightly lower one cycle and higher next cycle means literally nothing. A higher LH surge does not have any impact on ovulation being quote unquote stronger or ovulation being better. It means nothing. Your body just needs to cross the threshold to trigger ovulation. Whether it crosses that threshold by 20 points or 1,000 points does not matter. It doesn't matter. And so when we're using these apps and these kits and these tools, and we're getting so hung up on the numbers and we're comparing cycle to cycle, because of course we are, we all do it. Of course you're looking for an answer, right? That's valid. But we're looking for answers in areas that we don't need to be looking. If you're ovulating, you're ovulating. Like, close that door, right? Can we figure out and narrow down your fertile window? Okay, cool. We don't need to gather that data anymore. Unless you have an irregular cycle, then we're going to be continuing gathering data to try to help support you. We also, sidebar, want to know why you're having an irregular cycle so that we can try to regulate it, right? We can try to get you ovulating more frequently. But in terms of the actual number that your LH is getting, we don't need to be bothered by this. I see this inside our free community all the time, people being concerned. This gets brought up to me in our daily office hours in FCM of people being concerned. My own girlfriends sometimes send me this data going, Kelsey, what does this mean? I'm like, it literally means nothing. Did you ovulate? Yeah, I ovulated. Okay, cool. That's all that matters. If you're not ovulating, we need to know why. And if you're only tracking LH and not doing anything to actually confirm ovulation, I encourage you to spend some time confirming ovulation, because you might be getting elevated ratings of LH, but not actually ovulating. And that's kind of the risk of relying on OPKs solely, especially early on in your journey. Once you've had multiple rounds of confirming ovulation, we don't necessarily need to track as closely, but we can, right? One of my favorite devices to confirm ovulation is my temp drop. I love it. I also wear an Aura ring. It helps me to confirm ovulation. We need a BBT measurement to ensure that we're ovulating on top of, well, actually, we don't have women in our community assess for LH surges. We're looking for cervical fluid and we're looking for BBT temp shifts. Whole reason why this gets me so worked up is because the fertility journey is already stressful, right? The second you decide you want to make a baby, you want to make a family, even if you're like, this is going to be fun and easy, there's some degree of like stress, right? And then as the months go by, that stress grows. Now it's, well, what's wrong with me? Why isn't it happening as easily for me? We need to learn early on in our journey to try to keep things simple and easy to the best of our ability. This is a complex experience for many couples. And I think that having these nitty-gritty little assessments like this that we're getting so hung up on that mean nothing is just, it's adding to the complexity. It's making it harder on ourselves when it doesn't need to be. And so I'm always trying to navigate our clients and my community to like, what is the easiest way to get you the information that you need? What is the most simple path forward? And knowing now that maybe you didn't know 5 minutes ago that those little numbers that your devices are spitting out for you, that number doesn't actually matter or mean anything. Your ability to ovulate is all that we care about. I hope that just takes some degree of stress off your shoulders, because we all know that stress is not good for fertility, right? And so we need to find ways when we're talking about stress management. it's not just about not being stressed anymore, right? It's not just about turning that off. We can't. It's about finding ways to offload things that we don't need to be concerned about. And this is one of them. You just don't need to be concerned about it. And so I hope that takes a little load off for you. And if not, that's okay too. But if this is your sign that you need to hear that you don't need to do those tests anymore or stress or worry about them, I hope that you can go to bed tonight thinking, yes, this might still feel complex, but I've made it just 1% simpler for myself, and that feels good. And if it's not LH testing or OPKs, I encourage you to still maybe sit down tonight and think to yourself, where could I just make something 1% easier in my journey? Where could I get that little bit of relief? Because I think it's so important to take stock of all the things that you're doing and trying and make a decision of like, is this serving me or not? And if figuring that out is something you've struggled with, that's where we can come in. And that's where FCM and fertility confidence method can come into play and take a peek and take stock for you to say, this is what we're seeing in our assessment that we need to work on. And these are some things that you actually don't need to be doing. We often are removing supplements from people's plans when they come and work with us, and then adding maybe a couple of things or not even sometimes, and very less likely just adding and not making any changes to what they're already doing. Because sometimes we make it hard on ourselves because the internet is a wonderful treat that serves us all these things we think we need and should be doing. But then we lose sight of, well, what does my unique body need? And so taking stock, but also just asking yourself, like, is this serving me in this moment? Do I need a break? Do I need a breather? I have clients who are obsessively tracking their cycle for months and months and months. And they come to me and say, like, I think I need a break. Absolutely do it. 1000% take your break. I take breaks in tracking my cycle all the time. I'm not wearing my temp drop right now. I haven't for a little while. I do have my Aura ring to kind of like fall back on, but that works for me, right? I'm also not in the thick of trying to conceive. So I feel comfortable with just taking notes in my brain of like, if things are different, or knowing like, if I am having a wonky cycle, I can jump back into that. I have those skills, but I track my cycle for like, how old am I? Gosh, 14 years, like pretty, other than through my 2 pregnancies, pretty extensively. I have a very different approach now, right? And that's okay if you need to take a breather. So hopefully this was helpful. I hope some of you were like, I did not know that, and you learned something today. Pass this episode on to a friend or family member that maybe is also obsessing over those numbers, and let them know that like, we can let this go. We can let this go. You're going to have so many other things to worry about in this journey. This is one thing we can kick to the curb right now. And I will see you guys in the next episode.